Hi. First I'll show you some of the posters that I brought to the KSUMen Male Students in Peril conference. Here we go. So I attended KSUM's Male Students in Peril down in Kennesaw State University in Georgia, and I was able to film the whole thing. It was really exciting. I just want to make some short commentaries. I I did bring some posters that I have shown you in previous videos, but I did a quick video showing all my posters. So, you know, make some commentary on that. I just wanted to show you all my thoughts, and especially want to tell the world really what our issues are, and especially since college students and groups are watching these videos and watching our conference. I think it's perfect. It's a perfect time to show what the MHRA's issues are. So, as I said, I showed you my posters, and actually I'm going to do a quick listing. I thought this was a great idea because on one of these videos, I believe it's this one, where Sage Gerard gives his speech, YesBody, which was a student group on the campus, which is sort of a social justice warrior group that's feminist based. And I did ask, my question was, of course, they were asking us all night, what do we do, what do we stand for, but more importantly, rather than just being anti-feminist, what actually do you do? So my thought was, well, we know what we do. We do everything. We fight feminism, and we also we're active on many fronts. But I thought I would ask them, because I know pretty much that feminism has really solved all their goals, achieved all their goals. So what they do, is my point, of course, is that I can see that feminism, by and large, has co-opted all the other movements, because their movement is really done. They have no more victimhood creds. So, as the Honey Boy Badgers have said, that they're appropriating other groups' victimhood creds, which are still in use or still credible. Women were never slaves. Blacks were slaves. Women were never minorities either. So they didn't have that problem to deal with as a minority. So they're not minorities. I asked YesBody, this group, what exactly they do, and you'll see the answer. I asked specifically again. They didn't come up with anything. They really just say we fight for the social justice of all different groups. So that means that your particular group, feminists, who are fighting for women's equal rights, you're done. You're spent. So now it's going to be a gay and racial oriented organization where we have a defense. Whereas if you oppose now YesBody, you're not really just misogynists, but you're racists and homophobes. That's pretty brilliant. But let's be honest with yourselves, YesBody and your other groups. Once you try to fight all the issues at once, you don't have an issue, because you're so divided in loyalties. A real issue-oriented group sticks with the facts and sticks to the message. That's why I have here, I'm using it as a guide, AVFM, the Voice for Men's Mission Statement. I call it also a Men Human Rights Movement Statement. And what I'm going to do is quickly go down the list, and I'm going to rate feminists on their either opposition to, neutrality to, or positive influence on these issues that men and boys have. I'm going to start right here, without further ado. Male genital mutilation, euphemistically known as circumcision, must end. Neither religion nor tradition will excuse the sexual mutilation of children. Well, I gave feminists a negative on this, because there's a UN group, UN Women, and the UN itself, who's actually actively going to try to circumcise 20 million African men in the year 2015, while at the same time fighting against female genital mutilation. It's a travesty that a supposedly socially conscious and a human rights group such as the UN, highly feminist-oriented group, and feminist groups have not actively sought to end male genital mutilation in the world, or in the first world, anywhere. So they get a negative on circumcision. Number 2, ratify the ERA, Equal Rights Amendment, precisely as it was originally written, and sign it into law, or the equivalent in other countries if they do not yet have equal rights as a matter of law. Well, I gave you a negative again because there was a time that when the feminism was actually for equality, and they were pursuing the ERA, and I believe it was narrowly defeated. But I know that if women's groups and social justice warriors wanted to enact the ERA, they could definitely do it. I don't see it as a platform on any feminist candidate's agenda or feminist groups. We want the ERA, Men's Human Rights Movement, because we know that it will definitely codify, put into law what we really want. So in other words, we could possibly fight the selective service law that drafts only men according to the ERA, because it would actually say you cannot do this. It's against the Constitution. Well, as I said, I gave a negative to women's groups for that, because they do not want the ERA now, because that would actually give higher responsibility to women, and that's not what feminists want. Number 3, the selective service must either be abolished or include women. Again, I gave a negative score to feminists because I don't hear anything about in their literature or in their campaigns to force women to sign up for the selective service or to be drafted. They ignore that issue. This is the majority of the problem with feminists, is that they ignore men's issues, but they say that they're for equality, fighting for equality. They're not fighting for equality. They fight for special interests for women, and when there's something that is disparaging to men, they don't fight positively for men's rights. No, they don't. So also a negative there, because they could do something on that. They could be campaigning for women to sign up for the selective service, but you don't see that in any feminist campaign. Reproductive rights, choice and parenthood for men. Consent to sex is not consent to parenthood. Upholding this idea for women while denying it to men must end. Men must be allowed to unilaterally reject parental rights and obligations during the same period of time in which a woman may legally obtain an abortion. The identified father must be served with legal notification of the intent to use his assets for the benefit of a child while an abortion is still legal, or the right to use said assets by the mother is forfeit. Well, again, I give feminism a negative on this, giving reproductive rights to men and boys, because that would stop all the privilege of women being able to dictate to fathers whether or not they're going to be a father and how much money that they're going to collect from that father. They don't believe in equality in that way. They believe in reproductive rights for women only and not for men. Paternity testing should be mandatory on demand by an alleged father at any time. No man shall be held legally responsible for a child he did not father. Well, again, feminists, you get a negative here, because there are many feminist groups. Most feminist groups do not want fathers to have the choice of knowledge with the DNA testing. Many states, including countries, actually have outlawed, I believe it's Ireland, has outlawed any DNA testing for fear that a man might seek some justice if he's accused of something that's wrong, or accused of being a father when he's not the father. This is all about money. Women's groups and governments just want the money to keep rolling in. They don't care who they pick. It's some man somewhere, and they don't want any questions asked. Paternity fraud should be punishable under law under the same standards of any other form of fraud. And again, feminists, you get a negative. You fight laws like this. I know it. I know of paternity groups, paternityfraud.com, Cornell Smith. Time and time again, he's dismayed and shut out of the discussion by women's groups who don't even allow these kind of laws to be passed. Affirmative action programs based on sex must be abolished. Well, basically, feminists have appropriated the victimhood creds again of civil rights leaders, and now many times they get affirmative action for women when they were never minorities or slaves. But that's got to be abolished. Feminists are a big proponent of affirmative action, so they get a negative on that. How about this? Abolish the Violence Against Women Act, VAWA, and retroactively audit its beneficiaries for accountability with funds used. Well, feminists, of course you get a negative on this because this is the brainchild of you guys. It's a sexist title, and it's a sexist implementation. It's just a colossal waste of funds and human resources, because we already have laws against violence in this country. Why do we need the Violence Against Women Act to just protect women and girls? Or, you know, it's just absolutely crazy. So you obviously get a 0 on that. You don't want to help men in that regard when men are abused. There are barely any domestic violence shelters that take men. It's because of AWA. Abandon the Duluth model and all patriarchy-based, theory-based models of domestic violence in favor of non-ideological, evidence-based solutions and programs. Well, feminists, you get a 0 on this because you invented the Duluth model that says all domestic violence is perpetrated by men because of the patriarchy. That's all made up stuff. There is no patriarchy. Next. End primary aggressor laws. You get a negative on that, feminists, because you basically brought that about. Another one, end mandatory arrest laws. Again, another negative on that, because feminists, you've basically brought those laws to, you know, you've invented them. Require all state and federally funded domestic violence programs to extend full and equal services, including shelter, without regard to sex. Well, you've got a negative on that, feminists, because you have fought to include men in domestic violence shelters the world over. Poor Earl Silverman up there in Canada, he had his own male shelter going, supported by a shoestring, no governmental money, because feminists opposed it. The poor guy ended up killing himself because he just was at his wits' end. He had no more money to help his shelter. The only one in Canada for men. Sever family courts from Title 4D money. Feminists, you definitely got a negative on this because you have brought the horror that is the present-day family court that is made to incentivize women to divorce because they get the house, the kids, and child support without any questions asked. So you don't want to change anything, the status quo. It's funny. Paul Elam said this. Where is it? I've got to say it right here. You know, feminism is not a movement. It's the establishment. The man. Implement the assumption of joint legal and physical custody during divorce. Well, big negative on this because we know, I know, and I'm telling all of you out there, I tried to I didn't know everybody didn't know this, especially in our movement, but feminists the world over are against shared parenting because that would give up the prerogative that women have to have full custody of children and get the house and get all child support. They don't want shared parenting. They don't want fathers involved equally with children. It's a bigoted stance, and feminists, you get a big negative on this. Allegations of intimate partnership violence or violence toward children in divorce proceedings must be proven in criminal court before they may be used as reason to deny physical or legal custody. Well, you get a big negative on this, feminists, because you've brought this about. In other words, as soon as a woman, usually, who, 2/3 of divorces are initiated by women, starts initiating the divorce, and if she gets any intimation that her husband may fight her in any way, she could just allege any sort of domestic violence, or just say that she's frightened, and she will get a restraining order keeping father out of the house, away from the children and away from her, and that starts the ball rolling towards parental alienation syndrome, and also a permanent order of primary custody for the mother. Perfect, huh? So that's why we oppose this kind of tactic during divorce proceedings. Feminists would never oppose that. This is their bread and butter. Keep their power. Dispense with child support, except in special circumstances. Feminists, I give you a negative on this, of course, because you're a big-time proponent of child support and big-time promoter of sole child custody, with which you think women should have. See, if we dispense with child support, that makes sense, because if you are in agreement with shared parenting, where basically the child is shared responsibilities, so no need for any child support to change hands. Gee, but wouldn't that hurt the state? And gee, why hasn't child support ended? Well, the state likes the money. End alimony except by prenuptial agreement. Yeah, what's with this alimony stuff? Some states have lifetime alimony, which is really a enslavement by the state. That's exactly what it is. Look up on YouTube. You'll see many. Just do lifetime alimony. It's in Florida. I've seen videos of men on their old age bed with Alzheimer's still having to pay a large portion of his disability money through lifetime alimony. I think people getting married, they go into this as a contract with their eyes open. Alimony, I don't believe is needed. Make prenuptial agreements irrevocably binding. Now, actually, I'll give you a break on this, feminist, because I don't know what your take is this, so I'll give you a neutral on that. Because I'll bet you're thinking, in today's day and age, many women do make a lot of money and do have prenuptials. So I don't think you're too quick to take a stance on that. I think you're neutral in that. Marriage should be based solely on contract law. Oh man, I love that. I have to say, you got a big negative on this, because you fight that. I mean, even in prenuptial agreements, it's a contract in black and white. You still think the woman is the victim, no matter what they sign. Reverse the Dear Colleague letter. Return honor courts to their intended purpose of handling academic code violations. College tribunals are not equipped to address felony criminal matters. Well, I got a big negative on this for you, feminists. You brought this along with the Obama administration and all the feminists that are in his administration. You came up with this to further bully males on campus, saying there's a rape epidemic on American campuses. But when there's not, rape is down. It's at its lowest point ever. End federal funding and provide penalties for universities that interfere with the rights of men to form campus groups. That's funny, because we had some faculty members that tried to stop the Kennesaw State University men's group from having their male students in Peril conference on November 1st, 2014. Feminists do not want an equal platform for dissenting views. So you got a big negative on that, feminists. Abolish rape shield laws. Well, feminists, you got a big negative on this because you brought them about, okay? It's funny, you talk about the stigma of rape, how horrible it is. So we have to have these rape shield laws. But you're saying the stigma is horrible. Well, how about this? To get rid of the stigma, let's shine a light on the proceedings and people's names. Or, if there is a rape shield law, and we assume that suspected rapists are innocent until proven guilty, why don't we keep everybody's name a secret? Let's try not to have a double standard, feminists. You get a big negative here. Establish the equal treatment of males and females by all aspects of the criminal justice system. I gave you a big negative on this because feminists, you don't mind when governors come along and say, all people with vaginas, I am going to pardon you, death row inmates with vaginas. Nah, there's not a peep from feminists when they get benefits to being women. So, the men's human rights movement, as you see, AVFM wants the equal treatment of males and females by the criminal justice system, but no negative. You got a negative point, feminists. You don't agree with that, do you? Rape and other forms of sexual assault shall not be based on penetration or any sex-specific characteristic, but based on clearly stated lack of consent. Excellent. I give you a negative on that, feminists, because you don't agree with that. I mean, I believe they have just changed the guidelines as to what rape is, and now it's just penetration. That leaves all women out from being able to rape anyone, which they do in nearly equal numbers as men do. So I give you a negative on that, feminists, because you're not equality-minded in that instance. Prohibit state interference in any sexual relationship between consenting adults. Wow, big negative on this, feminists, because you have brought about affirmative consent laws that now are the law of the land in some states, California, now my state of New York. Our feminist Governor Cuomo also said that state colleges must now adhere to affirmative consent, where every step of the way you have to ask your partner what you may do and what you may not do. Now, I assume that goes man to woman, woman to man, woman to woman, man to man. It's going to be a lot of goddamn talking going on. Not much fun. Big negative on that, because feminists, you have brought these into our bedroom. That's funny. Progressives, who used to be so sex positive and out of the bedroom, you know, that's what Roe v. Wade is based on. The privacy clause of the Constitution, but now we can't have any privacy in our own bedroom at the behest of feminism. Infanticide shall be considered murder, the killing of a human being, regardless of the sex of the perpetrator. Well, I don't see how anyone can oppose that. I'm giving feminists a negative on this because I don't hear them coming out in favor of, what are you, crazy? Dumping babies in dumpsters and getting off by saying, you know, I was traumatized, poor me, postpartum depression. That's a double standard, feminists, so you got a big negative on that. So out of 26 bullet points, AVFM and MHRM, mission statement, bullet points, goals, issues, feminists got 25 negative and 1 neutral. So very poor score. So out of 26 of our bullet points, mission statement of AVFM and the men's human rights movement, you've got 25 negative and 1 neutral, feminists. So when I ask YesBody and when I ask feminists, you know, you say you're doing stuff to help men and boys, that's in your agenda, well, you didn't even get one positive remark or not one positive issue that you're helping men and boys with. I would like to hear what issues, specifically, as I had asked the YesBody people, and all I got was that, well, we're a social justice warrior group, and we're helping the gay and civil rights movement, along with the feminist movement. But the point is, you've already solved the feminist goals, and now you're appropriating other groups, their victimhood creds, which are still legit, and you're using it for yourself. You are the gatekeepers of approved victimhood. So what do you feminists do? When you win your goals, do you pack it up and give it a day and call it a day? No, you don't. You invite other groups with intact victimhood creds and require all to support and endorse each other's victimhood creds. Now, if you oppose feminism, you're not only misogynist, you're also racist and homophobic, and you hate the environment. So now they're not just feminists; they're social justice warriors, the equivalent of an index fund. That's funny. I love it. Rather than a legitimate company that's got its pluses and minuses that you can judge it on, feminism is this index group that's just a hodgepodge of everything. So you can't really give it any credit, and you can't really give it any criticism. So it's the Borg, it's the establishment, it's an index fund. So also, my idea when I did ask this woman from YesBody, see, it's obvious to us, the men human rights movement is just starting, and you know, we have all these issues, and we're really psyched up about it, and we're fired up, and I mean, you could see it right there at this conference that we just have so much to do, and the polar opposite of that was this feminist group that is no longer a feminist group because feminists have burned themselves out. They've really found all their goals. Now they've appropriated all these other groups. So the feminist part is burnt out, but us, we're on a mission, a serious mission, man. Big issues to tackle. So we're excited, we're on a mission, and here I look at this group, and they're really just, it's la-di-da, you know, feelings, and let's all get along, and come on, let's all join groups together. Well, we don't need to join a group. We have a focused mission to help men and boys. That's, I think, the prerequisite for a real group or a real movement. To have a goal, specific goal, not a watered down movement that's just, all right, well, we're social justice warriors. You're not getting anything done. I have to say, if you want to fight for civil rights, I would say join a civil rights group. Or if you want to fight for LBGT or gay issues, join one of those groups that's specifically fighting for those issues, not a watered down movement which is feminism. So the MRAs are on a mission. Feminist mission is done. So to stay relevant, now they're a social justice warrior group. It's funny, let's get real, feminists. You call yourselves feminists, but now YesBody and the social justice warrior movement, that's what you are. You're really not feminists anymore, because you would have female-oriented, feminist-oriented issues to speak of, rather than calling us just a hate group and racist and homophobic. You really just want to put a feminist spin on legitimate other groups that have nothing to do with you. What really do all these other groups have to do with feminism other than just victimhood? You could say that any social justice group, movement, is based on victimhood, and they have their problems. So the men's human rights movement, you could say, is also could be under your banner of social justice warrior, because we're seeking equal rights. We're fighting oppression and victimhood also. But you don't get anything done if you just muddle the waters and just try to fight everything all at once. So just a short commentary on the conference. I had some words with Sage's mom, and I'm glad everybody made up in the end. I didn't get an apology though. No, that's okay. I'm kidding. Actually, afterwards, I was just about ready to speak to her. I didn't get the chance, but when I was mulling around, I saw her and I saw Sage, and my idea was to, within earshot of her, was to say to Sage, "Hey Sage, man, that was great, but next time leave your mom at home." You know, I'd sort of like to make it all right. I do appreciate, Sage, you're an excellent, you're an amazing man who really appreciate a good dialogue and the freedom of speech, and I wholeheartedly agree. I'm glad that feminists were there. Your mom spoke her mind. You know, that's how we get things done. You know, we hash it all out. I was so happy to meet Professor Janice Fiamengo. She was amazing. I had not met her before, and thank you, Professor Fiamengo, for a great speech. Also, I met Jordan Owen and Davis Orini of the Sarkeesian Effect documentary that they're trying to make. Check out the link in the low bar. Help them out. They were amazing to talk to, and you'll see them in the video there. Oh, another Paul Elam gave an excellent speech, and you know, it's funny, he failed to find any rape apologists. I don't know why not. I mean, you think out of a room of hundreds of people, there had to be some rape apologists because of rape culture. I guess they just didn't admit it. I tell you, I would admit it if I knew of any.
And at the last part of it, it is my honor to introduce everybody to Sage Gerard, but I am going to take a minute to make fun of him before we get him up here. Sage has been with AVFM for some time. He started in the background with his technical skills, working with our server administrator, helping in various different ways. He got into making some videos, and generally over a period of time became a part of our management team, and quickly dominated everything that he put his hands on, honestly. What I have found about Sage, though, I don't want to talk about from the perspective of AVFM. I've had Sage as a guest in my home. I've spent time with him, and what I have found about Sage, that I have found about so many other MRAs, basic human decency, good values, good person, belief in truth, belief in expressing how he feels and thinks without compromising, as we've seen. Sage is somebody that I think you will be hearing from in the years to come regarding men's issues. I think that's inevitable, and I think that we are fortunate for that. And with that, I just want to say that I'm honored to introduce my friend, Sage Gerard.
Holy crap! This has been fun. This really has been an adventure, and I just cannot stress. I really think that this was a very remarkable last hour, too, for obvious reasons. And this is the, I think it's gonna make for, it's the makings for a pretty viral video, I think, later on. And that's going to be fun. But one thing that I wanted to talk to you about during my time here was a little bit about how KSUM came to be and why it's important for it to be here, and the kind of example Kennesaw State University could be setting with its presence, with KSUM's presence on campus. Now, KSU has acquired Southern Polytechnic State University. It is now serving mid-30,000s, upwards of 40,000 students. It is now one of the 50 largest universities in the nation. And it is getting a football program this next year, and it's going to be on the map. It's going to be, I'm seeing it on ESPN later, I'm envisioning it just going to amazing lengths. And Kennesaw State also has shown a remarkable capacity to increase its revenue and build and develop and just grow, which means that it's going to be extremely important for this campus to be aware of what it means to be equitable, because they're going to have a very, very strong capacity to affect equity and to set an example for other universities around the nation. If they mess this up, other universities will think it's okay to mess up. Get this right, other universities will have to keep up. And it's up to the Kennesaw State University community to decide what they want to do with it. Kennesaw State University was founded November 6th of last year. It was actually about a year in the making from that point on. February of last year, I heard of this place called the Gentlemen's Club. Now, the Gentlemen's Club, horrible name. The Gentlemen's Club was a male-only club where you could come in, and it was basically a group therapy session. Guys could sit down and they could talk about issues that were affecting them, and it was run by some staff members over in the, I think it was the Career Services or Student Success Center, I can't remember which. And the individuals that were there, what I went to, I think it was the first meeting, there were 3 people there, including myself and the organizer, so yeah, small crowd. And the faculty member there detected that I was passionate about men's issues, and he pulled me aside and he said, "Will you help us recruit?" And I said, I was really happy with what I heard from the Gentlemen's Club at first. I thought it was going to be great. But then I started to learn a little bit more about its policies. So basically, with kind of a therapy session, you would end up in a situation where, of course, you would sign liability waiver or whatever, where you would not, and some sort of privacy thing, where you would not share information that's private about other members outside the group. Fair enough. But this went a step beyond. It was actually discouraging members from socializing with each other outside of the group. I didn't really understand that. And I asked the staff member, like, why would I give this kind of power over you? I'm sorry, why would I give you this kind of power over me? And he ended up asking me a bunch of invasive questions about my personal life. So basically, I told him to stuff it, and then I went off into the campus, and I was thinking, wait a minute, that was the best thing I've seen for men here. I couldn't think of anything better. And I haven't heard of them growing. I've never heard of them again. I dropped contact. I was a little bummed out because in the event, with my knowledge about the issues affecting men and boys through the systemic presence that has been established by the social justice warrior mindset, the feminist mindset, things of that nature, I was thinking, how exactly can you build a systemic presence for men's rights advocacy? How can you build a systemic presence for a political movement? Because it's not enough to just provide commentary. You do need some action behind it. And so what I ended up doing is I got the idea for KSUMen, but I didn't want it to, I wanted it to be kind of like I wanted it to be a place, a beacon for human rights advocacy, but not an echo chamber. I wanted it to be something that could live on its own. I wanted it to be a living entity of itself, in and of itself. And I've used the analogy of flour and concrete, because that's what KSUMen is. It is a flower in concrete, something that is establishing and growing in spite of an environment that is not conducive to its own existence. And over the course of several months, I faced a lot of hardships in developing this organization. And these hardships included just simply when I stated that I was not feminist because I'm non-ideological, I'm more concerned about a scientific evaluation of gender, I'm much more concerned about a pragmatic evaluation of solving the issues. The fact that it was not feminist, and again, I understand this is not going to be a popular opinion with some of the room here, the feminist presence on campus made that very, very difficult to build. And all I said was that I was just not going to subscribe to an ideological view of things. And of course, when you say that you are non-feminist today, you're basically saying you worship Satan. I mean, that's basically what people get the impression. You're basically saying that you're not part of the church of today. And it's the response that I got was remarkable. I ended up getting people that were trying to basically smear my character. And so there were police reports filed, there were the USG hotline allegations, University System of Georgia hotline allegations, as I've mentioned before. And that's okay. at the end of the day, I knew they were not going to be able to find any evidence with which to discipline me, because I knew that I didn't do anything wrong and I wasn't doing anything wrong. But what it really also told me was that the other members of KSUMen, who were gracious enough to be here today and gracious enough to offer all of their support through all this time, I knew that there was going to be kind of a culture of, I don't know how close I want to get to this. Because I've had KSUMen members come in and they would essentially tell me the same thing. I love what you're doing. I strongly believe in what you're doing, but I don't want to be seen with you. I'm worried about what will happen to me if I support you. I don't want people to know. I'm worried about what will happen to my job. I might get fired. I don't know. And there's one point about politics that I have been beating, just basically if there's anything I could beat anybody over the head with, it is this. You don't get into this to be liked. You don't get into this for your image. It's not about image. It's about solving a problem. And when you solve a problem that goes against very many preconceptions about the way we view gender and the way we view human beings, you end up creating you do in essence put a bullseye in your head, but when you make progress, when you solve problems, people start to understand that maybe, just maybe, there's a benefit to reevaluate. And I'm detecting that people are getting that. Here on Kennesaw State University, I've listed some of the accomplishments a bit off the cuff. I was going to save them for this speech, but my response to my mother kind of preempted, made me want to talk about it a little earlier. But the fact that we've been able to accomplish so much in such little time, I think also shows that Kennesaw State University administration had an opportunity to clear up a lot of these issues quite easily. If we, as a small collection of students, could make so much progress, how hard would it have been for our administration if they just stepped up and admitted that there were some problems here? The KSU administration are actually, I think, a swell bunch of people. However, I don't think that they are very willing to step onto this territory because there is that same level of fear of liability. And I think it is leaving it to us, the students, to really make that difference, because we do need to be able to invest in our own campus community. And I'm a little concerned that through my experience on campus and the fact that my voice has been marginalized by an institutionalized feminist presence, I'm a little concerned about the future of KSUMen and KSU. I want to ask Kennesaw State University students a question, and that is, what example are you going to set? I'm going to be graduating next summer, and just in November 6th, 5 days from now, Kennesaw State University men turns 1 year old, and every officer position, we're going to be having elections. We would like to have other people join in the administration and take KSUMen into the future. And I want to know, and all the people who've been supporting KSUMen want to know, is KSUMen going to be able to survive on its own when trusted to the KSU community? And to be absolutely 100% honest with you, I don't know yet. The election day is coming, and in the event that no men's rights activist or no one passionate about men's issues, if no one steps up interested in the president's seat, then I might end up having to serve another term. And to be absolutely honest with you, I don't want to do that. Not because I'm against doing so. I would love to be able to offer that service, but I need to know from you, the KSU community, are you willing to be a pioneer in human rights advocacy? Are you willing to step up? Are you willing to be the part of the effort to actually put a gender equitable institution on campus and make it real? And if you are worried about what would happen to you, it's a valid fear. And I felt the heat. This is a hot seat. But it's really not about, again, image. It's about the greater cause of wanting to make sure that we have a renewed compassion for men and women. And we need to have the courage to admit to ourselves that men and boys are not offered the kind of love and respect that we would offer to women in a very dire situation. And Karen Straughan did a wonderful video, and her most famous video is Feminism and Disposable Male. And she has stated quite eloquently, when it comes to who we value more in terms of who do we allow to live and who do we allow to die, in terms of a dire situation such as a house fire, a sinking boat, or whatever, the expectation is that you choose women and children every time and allow the men to die. And this is a cultural thing that runs very deep, no matter what, around the globe, when it comes to who we choose to live and who we die, who do we value more viscerally. We just don't offer men that compassion. And you could tie this very closely to biology, you could tie this very closely to evolutionary perspectives. But nowadays we are living in a society where a lot of the threats that we faced in older times, when we didn't have engines, when we didn't have infrastructure, a lot of those threats are gone now. And we are in a prime opportunity to create what Warren Farrell called, social scientist Dr. Warren Farrell called a gender transition movement. A movement that, when executed, will create a renewed men and women that are released from the gender roles of the past. Men have not transitioned out of that yet. And a lot of the reactions we face today to the concept of men's rights, a lot of those reactions is based on the presumption that men need to be stuck in their roles. They need to remain in positions of servitude, to sit down, shut up, and deal with whatever their rights end. Their rights end where somebody else's feelings begin. That's where it is. And it's gotten to the point where it really is within men's, I think, within men's liberties and all of their powers that is afforded to them to be angry about that. But we live in a culture that is not experienced with men's anger. We live in a culture that when a man gets angry or sad or what have you, we don't know how to handle it. Men who are angry are presumed to become violent at any moment. Men who are sad are seen as pitiful, weak. But this is just flat out human beings with thoughts and feelings of their own. And we're not even willing to admit that. Kennesaw State University men is trying very hard to fight past all of these preconceptions. And the fact that we have been subjected to a very oppressive element stemming from the interdisciplinary studies department on this campus, it just shows that this is a problem that needs to be solved. And I understand that people don't really like what I've been doing. People don't like what some of our other KSUMen members have been doing, and that's fine. We welcome the outside perspectives. We don't fear disagreement. And we are relatively more transparent. And it just goes to show that this is because we all need to value free speech. We all need to value equal compassion and love. But sometimes, if you want to value these things and execute them, sometimes you need to be able to admit to yourself that something is wrong and that some forces that we are emotionally committed to need to be subject to scrutiny so that we can move up, beyond, and past it. And that is why feminism is subject to such criticism. That's why people get the impression that we bash it, but we're not in this to fight just to fight. We're in this to fight to save ourselves and become a more equitable society. But we need to get over that hurdle. We need to get over that hurdle that tells us that feminism is the way. Feminism is the light. Because it has become a very dogmatic institutional presence. And our challenging of it, believe it or not, is helping build an equitable society. Popular claim or not, it's the truth. And I again am always very, very excited when somebody is to stand up and disagree with this. Because again, when dissent happens, whenever you find out that two people share contradictory ideas, you know that logic dictates that contradictory ideas, only one can be right if one of them had to be right. And but the fact of the matter is when disagreement happens, a conversation happens. KSUMen, through the work of all of its wonderful members, has actually managed to become a subject of school assignments. It is now something that teachers are stopping in the middle of class. When a student mentions KSUMen, everybody goes, what? And they end up having a classroom discussion about it because they can't get it out of their heads. English papers are now being written about KSUMen. Documentaries are now being produced about KSUMen. And I'm not saying this to brag. I'm saying this because the discussion has started. And that's why. And I do need to take a more serious note here, and let me check my time for just one moment. Okay, holy shit, I still have a lot of time. I felt like more time passed than I actually did. But I need to take a more serious note, and again, ask, in 5 days, I'm going to be putting up my seat for re-election. And I hope very, very strong that there is somebody out there who knows that something needs to be done, who knows that compassion is the thing that guides an activist toward real resolutions to real issues. And I really hope that that person is capable of moving past fear of their own reputation and fear of their own careers. Because let me tell you, folks, when you really believe in this stuff, you can't really enjoy life knowing that you haven't done anything. I can't enjoy life knowing that the OCGA, section 16-6-1, legally defines rape as something that only a man can do to a woman. Not as something that homosexual couples suffer, not as something that men suffer by a woman. They define it legally as something only a man can do to a woman. And I don't like being painted as a supervillain in the eyes of the law. I cannot enjoy life knowing that in the event I were even to criticize what is politically fashionable, somebody with their own feelings uses their feelings to dictate where exactly I can what exactly I can say and how I can say it. I'm just not the kind of person that enjoys being told what to say and how to say it. Something about it. I can't enjoy life knowing that there are men out there who are killing themselves right now. Every now and then, if I could borrow Bono's thing here, every now and then, a man's killing himself. I just don't feel happy. I just don't feel happy. I can't enjoy life not doing something, as I said. And I'm brokenhearted that a university campus, a place where you're supposed to support the open exchange of ideas, is turning to the cops, is turning to the lawyers to enforce their opinion through the system because of a political disagreement. Disagreement is cause to file an allegation, to request an investigation. And these are not just students, these are faculty members. People who are supposed to be scholars, researchers. These are people who are trying to create a litany of investigations and abuse their apparent credibility, as I've said, to make anybody who disagrees with them look like a monster. And they will even look at a student and say, this person is fantasizing about murdering women. This is a person who makes me fear for my daughter's safety. And one of the things I've always said, I've always wanted to give a shot to the people who disagree, because I know that in political movements, everything changes. Being a Democrat 100 years ago was a very different thing than being a Democrat today. Same with Republicans, same with being communitarian, libertarian, whatever. Ideologies change, but the means by which we do things change. Life changes. And so I've always left an opportunity open for feminists in this respect, because that's the same kind of deal. I've always said to feminists, because this is where a lot of the disagreements lie, I've said, what are you going to do? Here's the things that have been done with KSUMen. Where were you when we were doing these things? These were opportunities to build gender equity on campus. Where were you? Where are you? And again, as I've said, I've sent my thanks to YesBody and I've sent my thanks to my mother because they have showed up. That's a first step. Because normally, the accusations and the attacks were sent from afar, thrown mud. Very happy that they at least decided to grace us with their presence today. At least then the discussion can be had. Round of applause one more time. But I will say it's still not enough, because I've had feminists come to KSUMen meetings, and they've expressed disagreements. One of them was very, very ready to fight me. And she ended up saying, you know, like, she ended up having several disagreements, and she said, I am a member of KSUMen now, and you're not going to make me go away. And I said, great, I'm glad you're here. I would like to see your contributions. But are you here because you're here out of compassion, or are you here to just prove a point to protect your brand name? I need to know if this is something that is part of your ideas, your core values, or it's just something that you can use as a means to continue the same marketing that has been actually dividing us over time. She never came back. And I ended up, you know, I continued to pose this question, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Where are you? And the work that we've been doing has been piling up. At the end of the day, work is going to separate. Results is what's going to separate who is credible and who is not. No matter how we market ourselves. This isn't about brand development. This isn't about image, as I've said. And sometimes, when I say to feminists, what are you going to do? They don't come and say, Sage, I appreciate the things that you're doing and I understand that there's some inequities. What can we do to reach across the fence to make something better? Instead, they challenge me to debates. What a treat that was. And when you look at the development of ideology on campus, I can see here on KSU just hints of actual compassion. And I want to send my thanks to the KSU Student Life Department, the KSU Administration, and the KSU Legal Division, particularly the staff members who saw what was going on and put our free speech first. Round of applause for these people. Those wonderful people up in the Student Life Department. When KSUMen was putting up its banners, some people were angry and took them down. Those are expensive banners, by the way. They ain't cheap to print. And they was coming out as Student Life Scholar because they allow us to print a banner 3 times a semester. And they ended up adapting and saying, we will take the banner down each time and put it up again in the morning. We will watch it. They didn't let their own opinions get in the way of this. They said, we understand what you're trying to do. We will protect it. They even made sure that in the event that one of our advisors was too freaked out to attend this conference, we still were able to come, even though so that's just, like, they had made sure we had backup. They made sure we were protected. And that's more than I could say, again, for those who were not interested in doing those things, but Kennesaw State University, unlike, say, the University of Toronto, it's not completely lost its mind yet. It's got more of a paranoid schizophrenia thing going on. And because of that, I know there's a shot. There's a shot for men's rights advocacy to actually develop as an institutional presence here. It's not going to be just a bunch of YouTube videos anymore. It's not just going to be a bunch of articles. It's going to be a system. It's going to be a system, and it's going to be here on college. But again, I need to know right now from each of you, if you're willing to actually take the reins and become a pioneer in human rights advocacy, because again, this can be a very thankless job, but there are people who will love you and cherish you for taking that risk. Yeah. And I invite anybody who is interested in officer positions for KSUMen to contact me anytime after this conference, even immediately after, to let me know if they're interested in a position, and we will arrange for that. And I would like each of you, please, if your hands are not already sore, please offer a preemptive round of applause for whoever, to let them know that they're supported. To not be opposed. That you're not going to be alone. That's the important part. Because I now know from firsthand experience that the universities are corroding, and there needs to be a corrective force, a new check and balance. And that check and balance doesn't come from the administration. I mean, I could say that they've done wonderful things, but they're not responsive enough. Students need to be able to learn to assert themselves. And letting violations of due process run amok, allowing feelings to dictate what you say? No. Pardon my French, but fuck that. It's not going to happen. But you really, 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 really need to be able to jump past that hurdle and put yourself out there. So, I'll ask one more time. KSU, you are now one of the 50 largest universities in the United States. What example are you going to set? Thank you very much. Okay, I'll have 15 minutes for questions, then we'll go ahead and get a panel set up, and each of you may ask any speaker any question you wish for 1 hour. I think it's dead.
Okay, I don't need it. I just wanted to say, for those of you who don't know, I'm co-president and founder of YesBody. That's Sierra, the other president. We designed the demonstration that was on the green, and I also want to say, on behalf of feminism, coffee shop feminism, YesBody, and just me, I'm sorry for the slander that has happened to you by the university. YesBody.
Thank you very much for that heartfelt that heartfelt gesture. But of course, you're apologizing, but you're not the people who have been trying to slander me. We're not you. This was a representative of the establishment. The establishment was doing this, and that is why I've continuously drawn that distinction between Karen's definition of the coffee shop feminism versus the institutional feminism, the establishment feminism, because ultimately only the establishment is a representative of an ideology in action, and this can go way back to Montesquieuian philosophy. A state, an establishment, can gain the personality and the traits of the minds that run it. There is a process by which the ideas we put in our heads are translated into reality. And what people tend to forget is that the translation from idea to reality is not a one-to-one correspondence. And feminism, I think that we're just going to have to disagree on this. Feminism is not an ideology that I think is representative of my interests as a man. And I understand if you feel that you really are concerned about men, and I really appreciate your compassion. But it really needs to be understood that a lot of us in this room are people who have faced feminism as an institution, and again, we want to change. We are terrified of what it can mean for our future. But I do appreciate, again, you showing up, you making that effort, you joining the discussion, and you approaching. Because that, I think, is a good step toward progress.
I also wanted to say, we will never, ever agree that feminism YesBody, and before KSUMen was founded, I actually was in the works of designing an organization to talk about men's issues. And the fact that some feminists completely disagree with the fact that men even have issues is a problem. And I'm sorry for that, but I do want everyone in this room to know that there are feminists who do believe that men have issues, and we talk about those and look at them from a feminist perspective, which, believe it or not, is not blaming men. And I know that none of you probably believe that because you probably never heard it from one of us. But if you find a feminist who really does have compassion for men and is not blaming men in that discussion, have a conversation with them, listen, and keep an open mind, just like the members of YesBody and the other feminists in the room have sat down and listened with compassion to you guys. I also want to say I accept your challenge. YesBody is doing work. We are going to help you guys. Okay? We're on board, okay? I can't speak on behalf of everyone in our organization because most of us are feminists, and the fact that you identify as anti-feminist is an issue. But I can tell you that we will work. All of the things that KSUMen has done so far on this community and this campus, we would have been totally on board with, if not for the anti-feminist perspective. So I will be at your meeting. I accept your challenge. I'll be there and we'll act.
Now I will say, one of the things that, one of the perspectives I've always had is that you do not need to agree on something to make a difference. You can have somebody who believes that water is dry and is still capable of going to a soup kitchen and feeding the homeless, right? And I don't believe yet, we're not going to be able to agree on that notion that feminism got it wrong, because I really do believe it did. But when it comes to, I do commend any effort to work, because when it comes to, again, the institutional presence of feminism versus those who are more consistent with its values that it proposes to have, you find a huge discrepancy. I've mentioned before that I have more respect for feminists like Christina Hoff Sommers and Karen DeCrow. I don't agree with them on everything either, but at least they have a sense of accountability that many feminists in government and in education don't have. But these feminists are so vanishingly rare, to put in the words of David King from A Voice for Men. The thing is, I really am very happy with what you're saying, but I think you're probably, you and YesBody who happen to share this view, are probably the only feminists who think this way with probably 100 miles, honestly. If you're really willing to put the work into it, I really, really, really would assert that you are rare. And it takes it's going to take some serious systemic efforts over a widespread area to have that kind of presence, to really piss off the corrupted monstrosity that feminism has become. It's going to take a lot. And I understand, if you're willing to take the challenge anyway, I do respect and commend that.
We're in. YesBody, are y'all in?
Oh, Jesus.
I prefer the term Jesus. I'd just like to make an observation. I'm kind of a bit of a veteran of these conferences, lectures, and talks. First of all, I'd just like to point out that in Toronto we have the first center for men and their families that has opened up, and how that process started was through talks like this. That's how we got that bricks and mortar organization up and running. And Voice for Men played an integral role in that, in helping that, and ensure that got up and running.
Yeah.
I'd also like to point out how you talked about University of Toronto's lost it. It's actually systemic across the universities in Canada. I'm going to point to Queen's University. Professor Fiamengo gave a speech there. I believe it was about a week and a half later. They had Jacqueline Friedman in, noted, well-known feminist Jacqueline Friedman in, to give a talk on feminism. Now, 4 of us went and attended to witness, see what the heck this talk was all about. Actually, there were 6 of us. Steve Brulé was there. They wouldn't even let him in the door. They threatened legal action against him. This was incredibly heinous. Matter of fact, violation of the Charter Rights and Freedoms, Section 2 in Canada, freedom of the press. Okay? So they actually violated the highest law in the land, these feminists in Canada. Actually violated, got the school administration to violate the highest law in the land. All right? Because of their ideology. Also, we have Del Mercier, who's from Queen's University, who only sees men raping men and not forced envelopment as a form of rape of men. She's at Queen's University. She still has her job there, even though she was rape apologizing and ignoring the victim population. She still has her job there. Now, the last point I'd like to make is that when 4 of us got into that feminist lecture, when we tried to ask a question, they ignored us. And they ignored us. And they ignored us. And what broke that silence was I stood for about 3 minutes, just silently, waiting. My hands behind my back and waiting. Finally, some young woman noticed that I was standing and waiting to ask a question. She pointed it out to those people that were on that feminist panel that, hey, why are you ignoring these people over here? Sorry, I don't mean to point at anybody. I just happened to be on that side of the room when she pointed it out. So that's what it took, and that is what they are after, at least on the Canadian campuses. On this campus, I would like to say that I see something a little different, and it does give me hope, like you had mentioned. I hope that, that Yes is committed to helping out. We make up 80, well, at that age group, they make up 80% of the suicide population. That is horrible. In Canada, it's 8 men a day killing themselves. In America, which has about, Canada's about 1/10 of the population of America, so you could probably bump that up to 80 to 100 men a day killing themselves. And they're being ignored. To make it even worse in Canada, the Canadian Mental Health Association, knowing these facts, and they've known it since 1995 that they should be addressing these issues. They have 11 papers for women's mental health, and you know what? That's awesome. But 1 for men. 8 men killed themselves yesterday, 8 men killed themselves today, and 8 will kill themselves tomorrow. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope that changes for you folks here, down here in the States. Because in Canada, it is absolutely disgusting and deplorable. Sage, you're an amazing man. Take care, sir.
Thank you.
Hey Sage, how are you doing?
Hey Jessica.
So my question is, and I ask this to feminists too, because they still have a lot of work to do. The work for LGBT and T people, is that something that you think KSUMen and MRAs are dedicated to? Not that it's a priority issue, but just something that we might see solidarity in.
I would love to see additional work in that area, and if KSUM has the additional capacity to take on those missions, absolutely. I will say though that when it comes to KSUMen, we specialize in men's issues, and of course when we add different demographics onto it, we increase the capacity that we need to take them on. But I am seeing some growth, and of course we would love to include perspectives of the transgender, the gender fluid, and every aspect of what goes beyond the gender binary. So, I mean, I would love to see missions on that. And in fact, from the Voice of Men, we have some absolutely unbelievably awesome contributors from the LGBT community there on the site.
I would like to ask for a moment, if you're going to participate in asking questions of the panel, if you could maybe bring that back, because there's some things I'd like to say about it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, that good?
Yeah. That's,
okay. Anybody else? How much time do I have left?
Well, I'd like to ask any spokesperson from YesBody, why were they formed?
Why were we formed?
Yes.
Well, we were originally going to be formed in the fall of 2013.
Would you like the mic?
Oh, sure.
At least the camera can get the feed from that.
Okay, I originally wanted to form a group last year to talk about men's issues because I saw some issues that were very concerning within our fraternity life and within the fraternity life at another university that I attended for a while. So I wanted to address those. I realized that I had too heavy of a workload last fall to form a group. So this year, Sierra and I realized that there wasn't a group that was talking about issues concerning intersectionality of diversity and inequality. There are lots and lots of groups on campus that talk about diversity and inequality, but they do so from one perspective. They talk about a specific racist issue, or a specific religion's issues, or a specific gender's issues, but they don't talk about what that looks like as a whole. So YesBody is a group of students that are very dedicated to social justice. So we got together and started talking about that. And the fact that this was going on was very convenient for us, honestly, because people were already heated about it and they wanted to talk about something. So it got people talking, it got people sent our way, and it was convenient, and that's pretty much how we were formed. We have about 120 members, and most of them are feminists, but they're also people that are passionate about race and sexuality and things like that.
I was just wondering if you were doing something unique. I mean, feminists are already taking care of those things. What in particular? Social justice. In particular.
The intersectionalities.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Sierra, did you have anything to say?
Well, we have time for 2 more questions.
I have a comment for you that, well, here, because it's a question that I've got a number of times and I've heard brought up several times tonight. What are we supposed to do? I keep hearing that question. And here's the thing, we are an organization. We are theory, we share ideas, we build upon one another, but we are not an ideology. We are not a movement. We are not an army. What we are, in my perspective, is individuals thinking and reasoning for themselves, trying to figure out what's going on with the system, and trying to be better people. So what we do is we do our own thing, and we work together doing it in organizations, but we don't do it with a top-down leader telling us what we all need to do. We need to turn ourselves on and do our own thing. And that would be my response when I get that question. And so I wanted to see if that caused any thought in you.
So if I'm to make sure I'm understanding you correctly, there is no prescribed ideology. We are just simply an amalgamation, a constellation of perspectives. Is that a representative of what you're trying to say?
We believe in free thought and reason.
Sure.
And what we're opposed to is those who use manipulative language and
Yes.
manipulative arguments
Yes.
Purely for the sake of power.
Yeah, one of the most dangerous aspects of dogma is you don't realize when it's starting to take you over, and a lot of that comes through, let's just put it bluntly, sales language. And a lot of the very emotionally manipulative language that some of which you've seen employed at the debate between myself and Brian Klein has can set a very dangerous precedent where, in essence, you can use what I would like to think as just gentle niceness as a means of getting people to use their own, convince themselves of their own righteousness and commit atrocities in the name of that righteousness. And I feel today that it's much more realistic to acknowledge one's own fallibility. So long as you admit your own fallibility and you are aware of how your capacity to be manipulated, that keeps you as a free thinker.